that shit.
Welcome to Trash Talk MMA.
Smile on my face, behind my back, and talk trash.
The #1 podcast for news and insight that matters in the world of mixed martial arts.
I don't want to hear it.
Brought to you live and unfiltered from all four corners of the globe by MMA aficionado Antoine Peltier.
Yo, and welcome to the Trash Talk MMA podcast. I'm your host, Antoine Peltier, and today I have two distinguished female guests fighting out of AKA Thailand, Miss Genah Fabian and Miss Gemma Pike. So we have a Genah and a Gemma. This is not going to be confusing for anybody, right? Awesome. How you ladies doing?
Good. Well, thanks.
Good. So I heard that there's a couple things going on. Genah, right now you're doing a juice cleanse.
Yes.
What's up with that?
Yeah, it's mainly just for detox purposes. I used to do them once a year where I'd just have liquids just to clean out the organs and the liver and whatnot. And yeah, it just so happened I've been putting it off for a while throughout the year, and just due to thinking I'd have fights coming up, and I thought I'd save it for this week. So I started it midweek through.
Okay.
So yeah.
So are you pretty big on living healthy?
I balanced is my thing. So I don't count macros, or I don't calorie watch or anything like that. But balanced meals, I train and eat to perform. So.
Yeah, I think one of the really cool things about Thailand and that I love about it, I mean, before coming here, I've been here now for 3 months. I spent 8 months before that in Europe, just living like a Euro pig, you know, where you just eat and drink and smoke, and everybody just, nobody counts or looks at anything. It's just, if it looks good, stuff it in your body, right?
Yeah.
and it's so funny because when you come here, I went from 82 kilos to 73 kilos, and really I haven't been doing anything, you know, very particular for that. I've been probably working out 2-3 times a week, and then just genuinely eating relatively healthy and cleaner, and then drinking a ton of water and being out in the heat. But so that's great. I mean, if on top of it you're doing some cleanses like this, I imagine that you must be feeling great.
Well, no, I miss food. No, it's
no, I don't mean during the week of the cleanse. That's obviously torture.
Yeah, that's the goal anyway. But yeah, just living balanced and eating clean. I eat pretty well, 6 days a week, and then one day I'll have whatever I feel like that day, just to mix it up and be balanced. And then when it's time to cut weight for a fight and be specific to that, then I will, and then I'll worry about cutting and calorie counting and all that then.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
All right. And Genah, you just came back from what we call a visa run here.
I did.
So for those that aren't familiar with a visa run, that's if you come to Thailand as a tourist, generally you can get in here for you can just fly into the country from any Western country or Australia with a passport, and they'll stamp you for a month and you can be here. And then if you want to keep staying, you can, but you have to basically just leave to go to another country for the day.
Yes.
And then come back. And there's ways that you can do that, either by flying quickly to Singapore. I've done that a couple of times. Or you can get on one of these brutal these bus excursions where it's basically like a 15-hour trip with an insane driver on roads full of potholes and screaming kids. You don't know who's going to end up in the van with you on the way down. And yeah, those are a bit draining. I guess for you, that's a bit of a nuisance since you have a fight coming up on Saturday.
Yes, that's right. And this was actually my very first visa run. So I've never done this before. I've only heard the stories of people getting on these buses. And of course, it was one of those experiences where every random possibility probably happened on my trip. They were 3 hours late bringing our passports back. There was a family with a crying infant on the bus, and it was...
See, that's making my skin crawl just thinking of it right here.
Yeah, and the baby was screaming at parts during the trip, and you could see the bus just wake up. Everyone who was asleep was no longer asleep, and yeah, it was pretty intense, and we didn't get back until 1:30 this morning, so training this morning was it was tricky.
Excellent. Now you both have extensive athletic backgrounds. We'll get into both of those things. Your fight coming up this weekend, Genah, is in Gemma. See, we're already getting confused here. Need to come up with nicknames. You guys have nicknames? Wait, they gave you a nickname for your fight this weekend.
Yes,
Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman.
So I'll call you Dub 2, Dub Bis. Okay, so yeah, you're fighting Muay Thai this weekend.
Yes.
Your opponent is, it's funny because I actually know your opponent. She lives in she's staying in the same hotel that I'm staying in. And it's funny because I saw the poster for your fight tomorrow. I'm like, wait a second, I know both of these people, and I'm going to interview her tomorrow. But what do you know about your opponent?
She's actually a Russian Pro-Am champ, so she's a professional amateur champion back in Russia,
okay.
Which is not information that was disclosed here, unfortunately. She's taller than me, she's probably a little bit heavier than me as well. And she's got really good hands. She's a super aggressive fighter. She's fought a couple of times already that I have seen, and she actually fought one of my friends over at Simbi. So it's going to be a good test. I've just fought another tall opponent recently and didn't do as well, so this will be, hopefully I learnt from that fight and can take some of the stuff I learnt and put it into play on the weekend.
So what sort of challenges did you experience in your last fight?
Just
with a taller opponent?
My last opponent was so experienced and so athletic and good, and I would kind of get in with my boxing, and the second I was in my boxing range, she was elbowing me in the head and kneeing me, and then I'd step back out into my striking range and she's kicking me, cheaping me in the face. So it's just kind of working around that and not going backwards as much, just using that step off and using my footwork now and just playing smart.
What's your record at? You're something like 13-3 or?
13-4.
13-4. Okay. So then you on your end, Genah. I'm gonna sound like such a goof. Of course, this thing. So actually, before this started, it seems like you got a little bit of news that might indicate that you have a fight.
Yes,
potentially on the books.
So literally just before 5 minutes before we got up here, our manager Adrian just 80% sure that I might be fighting on the 5th, which is this coming Tuesday, I think at Shillong Stadium. So fingers crossed.
So from our talks, you've been trying to focus on MMA, but would this be a return to Muay Thai for you then?
Well, started off my first ever martial art with anything that has been Muay Thai.
Yep.
Started training and then got into fighting a year later.
Okay.
Kind of since coming to AKA, had a few talks with the management and Mike, and they have talked to me about potentially doing MMA and coming over, crossing over, and so I haven't been able to get many fights here locally or within Thailand since my last fight in December, which was a experienced and pretty well known girl around here in Phuket. I beat her. And so
in MMA?
Sorry, Muay Thai.
In Muay Thai.
Muay Thai.
Okay. So you haven't had your pro debut then for MMA? Okay.
No. At that point, which was December of last year, I was only training and fighting Muay Thai. Since then, in the new year, have been training jiu-jitsu and wrestling and adapting and changing my stand-up for that. So that's definitely the aim to cross over into MMA now. As well as still fight Muay Thai and K1 as much as possible, as many opportunities I get. Got a lot of goals on that side of things as well. So.
Now, you're substantially taller than the average woman we see walking around here. How tall are you?
5'11".
5'11", okay.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's probably got to be difficult for any promoter to find, women that are in that same kind of physical caliber, no?
Yeah, well, people need to realize fights are based off weight, not height. And so, it's difficult for me. I mean, no one here at the local stadiums within Phuket, you don't do weigh-ins, you don't, it's not strict like that. They go by look, and there are girls here that are my size or eligible for me to be matched up with. However, because I'm considerably taller, for the most part, they see that, as me being heavier or bigger. That's not always the case.
Yep. Yeah, no, I hear you.
So it's been a bit trying, because for me I've only had 6 fights in total, 5 wins, 1 loss, and for me it's about ring time and experience, and
of course,
getting that up,
and getting just into a rhythm.
However, I've come to realize that I think my path is going to be a bit different. I'm going to have to step up into that next level a lot sooner, and I
mean, what are your options if you can't find a fight here? where else would you go?
We've got a few lined up internationally, not till later on in the year though.
Okay.
And that's definitely going to be where our manager and what we've discussed, where we're looking at to go international. But it's just, you know, getting that ring rust off, getting that ring experience, and I thought I'd be able to do that here locally a bit more than I have, but it hasn't been the case so far. So
how long have you been training MMA? I mean, how long has this been a project of yours to, because I mean, that's just a whole different skill set from Muay Thai, right?
Totally. The last 3 months. So I got into my wrestling and jiu-jitsu, and I'm adapting well. I really enjoy the wrestling. Jiu-jitsu, that's a whole fish out of water on the ground. And even adapting my stand-up to it, it's totally different, Muay Thai.
So you've only been training MMA then for 3 months?
Yeah.
Okay, and you feel you'd like to test yourself out already?
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully, you know, depending on how things pan out, maybe toward the end of the year. But yeah, it takes a while to kind of get that ground game up, and that's, you know, something like I said, I had no experience in prior, but I'm athletic and I learn fast and I train hard, so it's, you know, I've got the opportunity here at AKA to do that daily, which I've been working on. To cross over and hopefully debut, like I said, by the end of the year.
Okay. Now you're from New Zealand, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And when did you come out to Thailand?
Originally I came out first time in 2011.
Yep.
For just a quick holiday. Fell in love with the place, and then at that point in time I had moved to Sydney, Australia, so that's where I was based. And then went back, got a job offer, came back out here. Ended 2011 to 2012.
Yep.
And kind of been back and forth since.
Now, when you came out, you were first training and fighting out of Tiger Muay Thai, right?
Yeah.
Okay. How was that experience?
Yeah, it was good. You know, back then, had some really great trainers and it was a great vibe, and they had everything, you know, situated. They've come up even more since then. It was good. That's where I first ever, you know, put gloves on, and got in the ring, and with my first original trainer there, who I had for a year, that's where I guess I found my love for the sport and this art.
Okay, now before you got to there, you have a really interesting background in athletics in general. I believe you're a CrossFit coach.
Yep.
Do you still do those classes?
Yeah. So I'm coaching at the moment at AKA. So tying that in.
Oh, great! So you're actually a coach here.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
very cool.
We're just we've recently just come on board.
Okay.
But prior to that, I've been all over the world learning, training, studying. My other passion, my other craft, which is that, and it goes hand in hand. It really does allow me to combine the two. My passion for fighting and, you know, being able to fight and travel, and the training and grind that's required, and being able to schedule that around it.
And being able to just train yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, you really have no excuse to ever get out of shape, right?
That's it.
It's like my coach isn't here, right?
Yeah.
So that's cool. And then you also are a professional rower, or were a professional rower?
Yeah.
Rower.
Yeah. So, while I was in Australia, I rode on the Australian circuit for surf boats as well as still water. So that's sort of flat water that you see in the river.
Okay.
And in Australia there's a big surf culture. So there's also another side of it called surf boat rowing. So that's exactly it, bigger boats in the wild surf out there. Yeah, going for it, guns blazing. I competed on the Australian circuit for 2 years, and did really well within the cruise, got to a high level within Australia, and that's a very competitive and hard sport to kind of break into. Yeah,
it seemed like you even had Olympic aspirations there, didn't you? What happened there?
Basically, I got injured, and I had a bulging disc, and it was after a
time
trial.
Back.
Yeah, so I had a bulging disc, and I had a time trial the day prior, or leading up to it, just a normal training session. It was a 2K row on the machine. And I had back problems prior to, didn't really pay too much attention to it, which I should have. I was pushing through the training. The schedule and the grind for rowing is a whole
and I'm sure bulging discs and CrossFit don't go hand in hand.
Coaching and lifting as part of all my training and as part of all my teaching and whatnot. And yeah, just I had to get MRIs and scans, and it didn't appear to be good, so I couldn't lift, or it put me out of action for a long time, and that's what kind of brought me full circle back to Muay Thai and back to taking it seriously and yeah, fighting and wanting to fight, and yeah, back at it again.
Awesome. Gemma, same thing with you. I mean, it seemed like you, as you were growing up, you were involved in a lot of sports as well, some track and field, what else, some gymnastics, running.
Yeah, I was really active when I was younger, especially over high school and things like that. I did a lot of gymnastics, I did a lot of track and field, cross-country racing in Australia, which is just kind of long distances. So I did a lot of that when I was a kid, but as I kind of went off to university and moved away from home, I kind of didn't really do much during my 20s. So yeah, I'm a bit of a late bloomer in terms of fighting and coming to martial arts.
So we talked a bit too the last time I saw you guys, and you said that you did you ever really do any MMA, or you did some training in there?
Yeah, so I'm originally from an MMA gym in Melbourne, and you know,
was that Absolute MMA?
Yeah, Absolute MMA, and I had done, you know, some jiu-jitsu and some wrestling and a little bit of judo on the side with one of my friends, and we were talking with one of my coaches there about me making the transition to MMA, but I kind of had invested in Muay Thai at that stage, and I was umming and ahhing about it because my ground game wasn't where it needed to be, and I kept getting offered Muay Thai fights, so I had to make a choice of whether or not I could, you know, either do the Muay Thai fights, but in turn stop training my ground game, which means I was falling behind in MMA. So
yeah, what's interesting there too is when we look at the rhythm of Muay Thai fighters, you guys fight so much more often than MMA guys. So I mean, it's like you've got different training, you've got different disciplines, and there's also a whole different fight schedule, you know, that goes along with it. And I can see why you'd kind of have to pick one or the other.
Yeah.
And I talked with your colleague Dylan Crosshorn. And, you know, he dabbled in MMA as well, had a few pro fights, and he just decided that, you know, it just wasn't for him. It's not what what was coming to him naturally, what he was resonating with him. And so he fell back into Muay Thai. Do you feel like that's sort of the same thing, or was it really just you had these professional opportunities to fight and you said, hey, I got to focus on that and take those fights?
Yeah, I mean, I was really enjoying the MMA training I was doing, and I loved the extra push and the extra work and the different disciplines, but I guess it just came down to when I moved here. I just went, it's either Muay Thai or MMA, you've got to kind of pick. And I could have gone either way, but I'd already invested 2 years into Muay Thai, and I wanted to really give it a shot. And especially being in Thailand and the opportunities that would give me, I thought, yeah, let's make a run of this.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, you know, how MMA can really develop with various promotions and whatnot within Thailand. You know, obviously Muay Thai is a national sport, and it's just anchored into the DNA of the country as something that's, you know, super legit and that a lot of people come to do. And as a fighter, you have a ton of opportunities to do it. I mean, you probably could fight every week if you wanted to.
That's right.
You know, the opportunities truly are there. Whereas if you want to fight MMA in Thailand, there the opportunities become seldom.
Yes.
You know, and you know, just speaking with people, like I think it'll be interesting to see what can happen with the Thais themselves. That if they can embrace this sport, if they can become educated in it, train it from the same age that they're training Muay Thai, you know, you could see in 5 to 10 years probably some incredible improvement.
Yeah.
But the infrastructure needs to change, the education at a cultural level needs to change for it to become a widely accepted sport, and that could, you know, that could take a long time.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, I read an article that Tiger Muay Thai just put up because one of their trainers is about to make his MMA debut on Full Metal Dojo.
Yep. That actually already, I believe that fight happened.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yep. Like the 44-year-old dude. Yeah. That fight happened.
Yeah. So obviously he's done the work to transition and had to do significant groundwork to kind of get there, I would assume. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
No, and I mean, you know, I had John Nutt on the show, the promoter of the CEO of Full Metal Dojo, and this next event that's coming up, actually the same day. Do you fight? No, you fight this weekend. Next weekend, May 9th, is an entirely Thai card.
Oh,
you know,
okay.
Because he's just like, you know, there's no point in me trying to get MMA stars on this thing. I need to grow the promotion within the country, and to do that, you need to put ties on it so that the people fighting resonate with the people watching.
Yes.
You know, so I think it's an interesting move on his behalf, and I think he's making a lot of efforts to to really grow the the sport at a cultural level here, and it'll be interesting to see where it can pick up, because I mean, you see these kids fighting, training from the age of 3 and 4, they're throwing head kicks when they're 4. Imagine if those guys start, applying that to MMA. I mean, it's scary what could happen from that, from a country that breathes fighting like here, So, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it'll be interesting to see how, if it does catch on, and if, like you said, they do, become educated in those,
in those disciplines,
Yeah.
But it's like, that there's a lot of work to be done there, though, for them to wake up in the morning and embrace, wrestling and jiu-jitsu and kickboxing at a different style, because we all know, like you were saying, the traditional Muay Thai, it has a spot in MMA,
definitely,
but it needs to be modified.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
And that's why it's interesting too, if you see a lot of guys come here and they put on, like there was Roberto Flamingo at Tiger Muay Thai past couple weeks, and he's a great Dutch style Muay Thai kickboxer, had him on the show, great dude. And or James McSweeney, he gives a class that's for that, what I mean? It's like these guys, exactly, how to modify Muay Thai for MMA, and it seems like the Dutch are awesome at that.
Definitely,
So you're both now at AKA Thailand. How long have you guys been here for?
I've been here now just over 7 months.
Okay.
In total, 8 months.
What brought you here? How did you? I mean, you obviously trained at Tiger before. Did you come from Tiger to here? Did you leave? What was your path to AKA Thailand?
Back when I was training at Tiger, that was back in 2012. And since then I travelled the world all over, went back to Australia, and then I got a job offer out here for a strength and conditioning coordinator for a gym in Patong. And I wasn't ever planning to come back to Phuket just because I was well set and enjoying Sydney in Australia, but it really, I waited up over a couple of months, negotiated a deal, and decided that it would go hand in hand for me to be able to train and fight and be active and take it to where I want to. So I decided to come back out here to Phuket. I was actually working and one of the management here approached me and asked how I was going with my fights and everything like that, and told me about what was all happening in AKA. I was aware, but at that stage the construction was still going on, and it was still building from the ground up basically, and it said that they were looking for a female fighter to sponsor and someone that they could work with, and they basically, she approached me and just said to come through and meet Mike and Blair, the other managers and owners here, see how I like it, see if they like me, give it a week and get back to them, and that's basically how
cool. So you feel at home there?
Yeah, definitely.
No, that's great. And on top of it, if you're a sponsored fighter and you have a working opportunity, that's cool, because I mean, a lot of people come here and they kind of come on their own dime, and they start fighting, and if they don't get fights or if they get hurt, then all of a sudden, kind of the cash just runs out, right? So it's great that you can kind of have a full loop there of you're training, you're fighting, you're working. That's a good arrangement.
Fortunately enough for me, I was working for another strength and conditioning program beforehand, and now we've crossed over into AKA, but fortunately for me, just with not being able to get many fights of late, it's worked out to be able to survive and assist myself in living over here. So it does. Really
so did you spend the whole year here?
I've been here now, now a year, and I'll be here and lead up definitely for the next foreseeable future anyway. Fighting and training, and again, hoping to take off with the MMA later on in the year, and training for other fights I've got lined up.
Well, that's cool too, because I mean, Adrian, he's really well implemented. And if you said, if you get some other fights, not necessarily in Thailand, but if you get some, I mean, you're hop, skip, and a jump from a lot of places here. There's a lot of guys. I mean, they fight in Cambodia, they fight in Malaysia, they fight in China. They fight in Taiwan. I mean. Even Jeff Wong, he's having a fight in Taiwan. He gets next May 9th as well. It seems like everybody on earth is fighting on May 9th. I swear, I've interviewed like 12 people that are fighting on May 9th.
Well, there's quite a few guys locally from here that are fighting on that card, so it's going to be quite big. A lot of who get gyms.
Yeah.
Fighters will be,
Exactly.
will be there. So.
Now, how about you, Gemma? What brought you to? Because you trained in some other gyms here as well, right? Before getting to AKA.
Yes, so when I moved here, I started out at Simbi Muay Thai,
Yep.
which is, typical Thai Muay Thai gym,
Yep.
and it's set up only for Muay Thai. So I spent a year there, and they weren't in a position to sponsor me at the end of last year, and I was starting to run out of money and didn't have a job at the time, so...
What I just talked about, right?
Yeah, exactly what you just mentioned.
Exactly.
And I kind of made a short list of gyms that I wanted to approach for sponsorship, and AKA was my number one pick. And
So why was that?
just because I knew it was a Western run facility, I knew that there was going to be cross training made available to me, and I knew what that meant in terms of training as well. In Thai only gyms, they like to separate the guys and the girls a lot, which
Sure.
I understand to a certain extent. However, with guys like Dylan and some top guys that we've got here, the opportunities to train with those guys is really great for me,
Right.
and it kind of opens up my training world. So I kind of liked being able to have that option, coming here, doing the airdyne, doing a bit of strength and conditioning.
So yeah, I want to talk about that because that's another part, sort of the typical traditional Muay Thai instruction here is they don't do any strength and conditioning. So are you're obviously taking the traditional Muay Thai instruction, but you're also embracing kind of the Western methods of strength and conditioning and reinforcing your body, your flexibility, and all that.
Absolutely, and
That'll end up giving you an upper hand at some point.
Well, that's right. And coming from Melbourne too, where cross training is such a big thing, and every athlete I know in Melbourne does cross training, and it was part of my schedule back home. And it was quite interesting coming to a place where they just didn't really. They understood it, but they couldn't really accept it, or they couldn't wrap their minds around it. And Kaylee Reese is a friend of mine. She trains at Simbi quite frequently as well, and we would do circuits together in the morning and be surrounded by Thais just kind of looking and scratching their heads and trying to mimic what we're doing, and then just putting plates down and walking away. And we actually asked the owner at the time, can we take 2 sessions off a week to go and cross train? And basically it was a no. If we wanted to cross train, we had to do it on top of 12 Muay Thai sessions a week. So I was doing 12 Muay Thai sessions and 3 cross training sessions a week, plus whatever weights I could do when I wasn't dead
so
on
there's
the floor.
almost like a hostility towards it.
Yeah. Like the
It's
owner said he understood the benefits of it and he could see it in other fighters, but if we wanted to do it, it had to be on our own time. And it was great coming here and talking to Adrian, and he basically said that there is some flexibility to do cross training, and you're not expected to do 12 Muay Thai sessions a week, because obviously that's great for a beginner, or it's great for when you've got a fight coming up, but cross training is so important and it gives you that edge. And I feel like now, especially that so many Westerners are coming into the sport, if you're not upping your training, you're not doing that cross training, you're not getting that extra kick, you can really
from what I've seen and having conversations with people like yourself, it's just like that's the next phase of Thai Muay Thai. It's just like once they can embrace that that Western instruction for strength and conditioning, it's just going to add a whole new level to that sport as a whole.
And even the concept that running 20 kilometers a day is going to make you the fittest person alive, it's not necessarily the case for some people. And for me personally, I've had problems with stress fractures in the past from running.
Yep.
So if I run too much, I get stress fractures. That puts me out for 3 months, and it's not really worth it, because I run slower in turns, so I don't get the stress fractures. Therefore, I'm not getting the benefits of the run, because I'm not really running, and I know I'm not running.
Yeah.
But they're happy to see me go off in my runners, because they think that I'm running and they think it's making me fitter. It's if you're
harder,
seeing
not smarter.
it's like, and you explain it to them, and you explain shin splints to them, and they can't understand it because they don't.
They've been kicking
deal with
bamboo trees since they
They're like, what, do you have pain?
There was nothing stereotypical about that comment, right?
Yeah.
Some Van Damme shit. Well, Jenna, same thing. You being a CrossFit instructor, you're obviously dialed into nutrition and everything. My opinion on the little that I've looked into it and experienced it over the last maybe 3-4 years of my life is I get the impression in the last, 8 to 10 years, it's almost like we've learned more about the human body and athletics and nutrition than we have in the whole history of mankind, and that, a lot of us have just been living under very untruthful methods or beliefs,
Yes.
you know, especially dietary. I mean, it's just ridiculous, you know, the data now that's coming out about, you know, okay, you're doing juicing diets and there's all these various fat diets and low carb this, et cetera. But would you feel that's pretty accurate? I mean,
and I think it's a lot more accessible to people as well these days. Like you said, last.
I mean, it's
month
also
and
confusing too, because now there's so much information,
Yeah,
and
so
if you ask, you know, if you Google something like "Are carbs bad for you?" I mean, you're going to get a ton of different responses, and there's different agendas behind those, just like dairy versus soy or whatever. You know, there's a whole bunch of different things. So it is a bit confusing, but I believe I've actually seen some different results. I know I had some health issues, I had some asthma and some acid reflux, and I stopped eating gluten for 6 months. And already just 2 weeks after stopping that, I stopped my medication. I've never touched it again. And it's kind of weird. And I don't believe that I'm gluten intolerant, but I know that I'm probably not intolerant, but I'm probably susceptible to it, sensitive to it. I have a sensibility to it. And stopping that helped tremendously. And now it's funny because now I can just sort of eat whatever I want whenever I want. It's almost like it kind of just by taking that break, it fixed something, you know? And there's also such a huge difference in quality of food wherever you go, because I've been traveling all around the world. And when I eat food in North America, I feel like shit after. And when I eat the same stuff in Europe, I feel totally fine. And I don't get the same effects. And you're like, what the hell's going on at that level? You know? It's scary. It's scary. You know? And then obviously when you eat out here, you feel great most of the time, except when you get food poisoning, and then you feel like dying. And I think every person that comes here, they're going to get food poisoning the first 1 or 2 weeks that they're here. It's just the way it is, right? It's like you show up with your Western stomach, and it's just there's a fragility to it. There's some sort of something in the food that's going to muck you up. If you can get past that, then you're fine.
Usually you get hit once, and then
I haven't had food poisoning since I've been here.
Good for you, man. You got a serious angel watching over you, then, man. You know? Oh man, I've had it a couple times. I remember last year before I started training at Titan, literally the weekend before I was going to start, 10 full weeks. The day before, I got 24 hours of food poisoning. It was just wrong. It was just wrong. I was just like, oh my god, like this is you're on the stoop of death here, you know. But it stopped, and some people they get it in the last 7 days, 10 days. So I was like, okay, it was just 24 hours of brutality. But you know. Awesome. Well, it's been great talking with you, ladies. Do you guys have any shout-outs you want to do? Any sponsors?
I do.
Okay.
A big shout out to Absolute MMA and the guys back home. They've been supporting my journey even though I'm still over here, and they support me with training when I go home. Combat Cafe in Rawai, who provide me with good, clean, healthy food. Mayhem Musclewear in Patong have been giving me some awesome threads and stuff to train in, and Patong Pro Nutrition have also been supplying me with some supplements. And also Manage My Media, who have been doing a lot of networking for me back home and helping me try to find new sponsors. So
goodness, that sounded almost
guys.
rehearsed. All right, you got to do a better number than her.
Basically just CrossFit Sydney, back in Australia, Sydney. Big supporters of me, and my coach there still helps me out with all my strength and conditioning needs and stuff, and gives me programs for me here while I'm still here. And also Fight Lab, who have been awesome in supplying me with whatever needs I need for training, clothing, apparel, and supporting me with all my fights that I've had so far. That's it from me.
Okay, cool. How can people follow you guys on social media?
All of my stuff is Miss Muay Thai, so I have a website, missmuaythai.com, my Instagram is @MissMuayThai, and Facebook Miss Muay Thai.
And how are we spelling Miss?
MISS.
Okay, so it's fully spelled out.
Yes.
No dots and...
No dots, nothing fancy.
And you, Genah?
Facebook, Instagram, Genah Fabioso. I'm still yet to catch on to the Twitter and athlete page craze, but
do the athlete page for sure.
Yeah. I've got someone looking after that.
Twitter, you kind of just got to get a bit of a handle on it first. It's got its own language and it's kind of its own politics. It's a weird little beast. Mm-hmm. But do the athlete page for sure.
Yep.
That really helps people to grow your fan base.
A few things I want to tick off first before getting on that bandwagon.
No, it's good. It's good to wait till the time is right. Very cool. Well, thank you very much, both of you, for coming on the show. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
All right, good luck with your respective fights.
Thank you.
All right, this was the Trash Talk MMA podcast. I'm your host, Antoine Pelletier, with my guests, Genah Fabian and Gemma Pike from AKA Thailand. Follow me on Twitter. Follow me on Facebook. Peace.
Thanks for listening to the Trash Talk MMA podcast. Be sure to visit trashtalkmma.com.
On my face, behind my back, they talk trash.
And don't forget to follow Antoine on Twitter at Trash Talk MMA. Let us know you're listening. Use hashtag Trash Talk MMA.